All right, we are now live, it seems. Can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, please type in a comment. And if you can see me as well. Welcome, everybody. We have 10 people here already. Oh, that's down to 5. Hey, Eric. What's up? All right. So, we're going to give everybody else about 5 minutes. Does that sound good for everybody to tune in? Because some of our viewers might be relying on the notification that the stream has already started to actually jump in. So, hi, Emil. How you doing? All right. For those of you who are already here, you guys got any starting questions for me? Just kind of hanging out here, waiting for everybody to jump in. Meanwhile, I'll turn my new MateBook X Pro on. How'd you guys know about the live stream, by the way? Hey, Larry. Good to see you. You're that Hackintosh dude. The one whose username ends in 86, or do you mean you're the one who created all the Hackintosh patches? Ah, gotcha. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you. How's the video quality doing for everybody? All right, 720p, good enough. That's as much as YouTube is capable of doing for live streams. By the way, I'm using my newly received OnePlus 7 Pro to stream this, using the pop-up selfie camera there. Okay, so I want to show you guys one little thing to start us off. I remember there was a little bit of discussion about whether the 2019 MateBook X Pro has a 10 or 25 watt MX250. It turns out it is once again a low power version. It's either 10 watts or a little bit more, probably still 10 watts. And you can see that here. Let me actually, let's see. I think it would be better to show you guys this way. This is GPU Z right here. So if you look at the device ID for the MX250, it says 1D52 right there. That means it's the low power version. All right, so now this does make sense because the cooling system isn't all that much better. The fan is better for sure. It's quieter, it's more efficient, but overall you're looking at a maximum of 5 watts of extra cooling power. So that's not enough to jump to a 25 watt MX250. Yep. All right, let me switch the camera over. But we do get 4 lanes Thunderbolt, so that's good for those of you who are into eGPUs. All right, it's been about 5 minutes. Let's start. Throw the questions at me. You got any questions for me? What would you like to know? Would you like to start off with the teardown already, or would you like to answer some questions about the Huawei export ban, or any how are the speakers changed? Okay, so if you have seen my speaker fix article, uh, the somewhere in the middle of the production run of the 2018 MateBook X Pro, Huawei changed the speakers a little bit by just adding three little pieces of foam under the speakers so that they wouldn't rattle against the body. If you got your MateBook X Pro a little earlier than that, you might have a distortion in the speakers at around 500 hertz, particularly when you're listening to male voices, things like that. Yes, that is a OnePlus 7 Pro, by the way. I've got the box right here, and I'm actually streaming from it. Anyway, so yes, and then somewhere around October, November, I estimate Huawei fixed that. Now, in the new 2019 MateBook X Pro, the fix remains. It's the same exact speakers, as far as I can tell. I've yet to measure them, but just from listening impressions and from visuals, they're the same speaker units. They might have slightly different tuning, but I wouldn't think so. As far as I can tell, they're the exact same as the later production runs of the 2018 X Pro. All right, let's see. Let's check the chat. Okay, have your hacks been implemented in the new MBXP? That's what we're gonna start off today. We are going to tear this apart today and look at what's inside, and make some plans for cooling mods for the 2019 X Pro. That'll be coming up. All right, what else is in the chat? How does thermal throttling look versus 2018? I would say a little bit better, but not by much. I was running Windows Update, setting up the computer. It was loaded at around 90%, and the CPU throttled down to 1.8 gigahertz. However, that only means that as far as the software controls for the throttling, those are staying pretty much the same, but that doesn't mean there's more potential this time. If you've seen my cooling mods from last year, I was able to remove the power limits and allowed the computer to boost and stay at around 30 watts. Actually, towards the end of the run, I was able to do around 35 watts. So what I am anticipating for the new X Pro is that once the power limits have been removed, we'll be able to push it even further. All right, trackpad rattle. Okay. Yes. So at first I thought there was no trackpad rattle, and then I realized the feet were a little uneven, so I kind of just bent it a little bit, bent it back. These laptops are completely malleable. They get bent in shipping and just carrying it around in your backpack. If they get bent, you just bend it back. That's how I've been doing it the whole time. And then the trackpad rattle kind of came back a little bit, and then it came back more when I was using it on my laps. So it's kind of inconsistent. But right now, just sitting on this flat desk right here, there's actually pretty much no trackpad rattle, which is kind of surprising. They might have improved it a little bit. Liquid metal thermal paste. So I'm probably not gonna do that, just because it's conductive. Everything else that I'm doing here, it's either not a liquid or not conductive, right? It can't be both. Like whatever I'm putting in the computer, right? If I'm using copper heat pipes, they're conductive, but at least they're not liquid, right? So I have some kind of control over it against any accidents that might happen. And this is a good time for me to tell you guys that I've actually been surviving without a working MateBook X Pro for about a semester now, since mid-January. I've been trying to fix it for the majority of the semester, but basically what happened was I was trying to get out of this laptop a little bit extra cooling performance. So I did use liquid metal thermal paste. I used Thermal Grizzly Conductonauts, and everything was fine except until when I tried to clean it off for a reapplication, and I was being too hasty. I was trying to go to bed early, and the cotton swab just kind of wiped it down out of the CPU area, and I was trying to clean it up, and the more I tried to clean it up, the worse it got, and eventually it just got under the CPU socket, and that's when it fried the CPU from below. All of the pins that the CPU has attaching to the motherboard, that actually fried my old MateBook X Pro, so that's why I have my old Lenovo laptop up here. That's what I've been using for the past 5 months, which is a sad bit of news. But I've been keeping up with the rest of the community. Still feel like I've always felt like a MateBook user the whole time, even though I wasn't physically using one anymore. What GPU is inside? Okay, so the MX250 is ever so slightly better than the MX150 if every other factor was held the same. And as I previously mentioned, this is still the 10-watt low-power version of the MX250. So really, there's not that much difference, except there's probably going to be differences in cooling, so this will be able to maintain better clock speeds. Yeah, open the chat in another screen. Good idea. Let me try to do that. This is my first time live streaming, so I'm a complete noob to this. If you guys got any tips, pointers, please shoot them at me. All right, time to pull up my monitor here. Okay. Hi, Babek. Welcome. Where did you buy the 2019 version? So just last night, a friend of mine, actually a friend of my parents, brought it over on the airplane while he was traveling from China to the US. So it's kind of a smuggled item here. All right, let me open up the stream. All right. I'm reading the live chat from my monitor now. Much better. Thanks for the tip. Okay. Where are you from? He's in Cali. That's right. I do live in California. I go to UC Berkeley here in Berkeley, California. However, I am at home right now because I just got on summer break a few days ago. I've just moved back to my home out of my dorm. So my room's super messy right now. I'm just hiding it for the camera. Okay, let's see. Okay. Do you think the US ban will have a big noticeable effect on the MateBook? Microsoft updates, but also other updates / support. All right, so let's address this situation. And while we get into it, let's start disassembling this, shall we? Let me rearrange. Oops. Sorry about that. Kind of a heavy phone, 200 grams. Let's see if we can get this steady. Thank you for your hacks. You are welcome. I really enjoy doing them. Okay, so let's okay, so I'm gonna pull up some tests. Let's see, what should we do first? Okay, I'm gonna pull up throttle stop. Okay, and while I do that, I'm gonna talk about the trade ban. So Microsoft pulling support. So the news came out today that about 8 hours ago or so, no more than 12 hours ago, that the X Pro is no longer being sold on the Microsoft stores. But as far as whether we will continue to get updates, it's a I would say mostly yes. And let me break this down for you. So there's different places the updates can come from, right? There's different kinds of updates. So one being updates to Windows itself. So let's say you're updating from 1803 to 1809, that kind of update. Those I would say, unless Microsoft actively bans like blacklists the hardware identifier of the X Pro or of MateBooks, of Huawei laptops in general, unless Microsoft actively goes out of their way to blacklist these laptops, they should continue to keep coming. And my reasoning for that is there's lots of weird ass models of computers out there that people either hack up themselves. I mean, heck, even a OnePlus 6T can run Windows 10 now, right? And that's like if you try to like, you can still install Windows on it, and it's not like OnePlus has worked with Microsoft on bringing Windows to that device. So it's not a whitelist situation, it's a blacklist situation. So it all comes down to how proactively Microsoft is going to be in severing those ties with Huawei. And really, like, these aren't even ties with Huawei in the like traditional sense that Trump was talking about, right? Like, this is more of a relationship between a user with a particular device that wants to install Microsoft products, and it's not really done directly between Microsoft and Huawei. So I'm kind of going more with we should be able to receive Windows updates, and really it all comes down to how hard it would be, even if they do blacklist things. Okay, somebody's spamming here. I'm gonna take care of that. Alright, taken care of. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna switch the camera here. Actually, I think this will be good. Yeah? Alright. So I'm gonna download Throttle Stop. See what we can do here. We can, immediately go into removing the power limits and see, where it starts to shut itself off. By the way, the first thing that I always do on any new computer that I get, especially a laptop, is I go to the guide that I wrote this past month on actual hardware tweaks to make your laptop faster and more efficient. And kind of just follow through my own guide because I don't remember everything. And I apply all these tweaks before I get into actual hardware mods. So if you guys don't care about seeing my face, which I assume is the case, I'm just going to move this keyboard out of the way. Something fell off my table there. Okay, much better. Now you guys can see my screen. All right. Okay. So, first thing, one thing I need to address is that it seems like a problem specific to MateBooks. I've never used the other MateBooks other than the X Pro, but apparently the panel self refresh lag is still here. So, oops, that is one thing that you still have to take care of, because it's extremely laggy if you don't. So panel self refresh, you can kind of, I mean, you probably can't see on the stream, but it's laggy. It's operating at around 30 hertz. If you turn this off, if you turn off panel self refresh, it's much smoother. And then if you just turn off all these things, which I always do, because display power saving technology, that actually messes with your brightness, and it kind of like varies the brightness, and it kind of flickers. It's not very pleasant at all. And this actually like rounds down your FPS. So none of those, I don't like either of those. So I'm just going to turn all these off. That's the first thing I would do. Oops. Okay. All right. Panel self refresh. NVIDIA control panel. So the NVIDIA control panel's exactly the same, I would assume. Tell us your specs. Okay, yeah. Top end model, 1 terabyte, MX250, i7, 16 gigs of RAM. It was 14,000 RMB. Don't know what that is in dollars. Around 2,000, I think. We're gonna do, let's do maximum performance. How about that? Is the price increase worth it? I think it depends on what kind of budget you're working with, how flexible it is. I would say if you're after like the best ultrabook in this class, which is kind of what the X Pro is aiming for, if you're after that, if you're after the best, then yes, $200 is worth it. If you don't really care that much about performance or noise or heat, then you could save those 200 euros. Does this config come with Huawei PC Manager? Okay, so PC Manager, I did have PC on here, but the first thing I did when I received this laptop was I reinstalled Windows. It did come, because I got it from China, it came with a Chinese version of Windows. I have never tried switching the language without doing a clean reinstall. That's something that I recommend anyway. But yes, it did come with Huawei PC Manager, and I believe there's 2 different versions of PC Manager. One for international and one for China itself. But anyway, I don't use it. I don't need its battery charging limit function. So I kind of just get rid of it. And what happens really nicely when you get a PC Manager is you get all the updates through Windows Update. And this is actually really, really nice. And, you know, surprisingly, well, actually not really surprising. I was kind of expecting this. I was able to get all my feature updates. I'm running Insider Preview, by the way. But I got all my driver updates through Windows Update. See, all of my devices are recognized. All of the updates just came automatically, so that's really nice. I hope this stays this way, and I think it will. I think it will. Okay, so let's get to throttle stop now. So, oh, by the way, there's more things in here that I recommend everyone to do. Image enhancement, turn that stuff off. Skin tone enhancement, contrast enhancement, all that stuff's really cringy. It messes with your picture, and it makes it just less consistent. So I'm gonna turn this all the stuff off, the first thing, and also all these things. All right, we're done. Okay, so over here, also looking good. So we can close that. All right, now to throttle stop. So let's extract all this throttle stop. I'm going to move it to, let's say, I'm going to do C users Brad 331 throttle stop. There we go. Okay. What version of Windows 10 do you have? I have I don't even know. I'm running what was this again? Oh, I think it's like I need the Visual C++ or something. Yeah, I need the Visual C++ runtime files. All right, let's download that. I'm running Windows Insider. It's either 1809 or the version after that. This is not wait, actually, I'm sorry, 1903. Yes, I'm stupid. I don't even remember what kind of version I'm running. I just get the newest one, Windows Update, Windows Insider. It's been stable enough for me. I've never had like a blue screen or anything because of it. So. Intel and NVIDIA driver versions. I just got everything automatically through Windows Update. So those would be provided, yeah, through Windows Update. Not Microsoft Catalog, nor the Huawei website. I kind of just go with Windows Update by default. And then if there's anything, any outstanding problems, then I'll go and cherry pick the driver from the manufacturer website. Did you really note an improvement in terms of heat management? Yes. So in heat management itself, like the cooling capacity is better. We can do some tests after this, but what's really notable though is noise normalized thermal performance. So if you keep the performance constant, this is a much quieter laptop. By the way, different boot logo this time. They've updated it to be consistent with the back there. Yeah, if you do performance normalized, then your noise will be lower. If you do noise normalized, your performance will be higher. So for every decibel, you get more performance. You got more watts, and that's the exact sign of a better cooling system. Okay, so. See, we should be able to run throttle stop now. Okay, do I need to download the 32-bit version of this? Probably do. Yeah. I keep forgetting, like, every time I set this up and then just forget. How do you guys remember how do you solve the DLL missing problem in throttle stop? Wait, what's going on? All right. Oh, you got to download the 2013 version. Oh my gosh, okay. All right, whatever. I used XTU. I also used XTU until it stopped working, and then I just didn't bother to do that. So throttle stop is nice because it has everything that XTU has, but more. The lid open angle is the same. Oh, crap. Sorry about that. Hopefully that bang didn't blow your speakers out. Gotta make my Gorilla Pod stabler here. All right, so the lid open angle, as far as I can tell, is the exact same. Yeah, it's about, let's say, 135 degrees. Yeah. All right, can we open throttle stop now? I gotta download the 32-bit version probably. I like using HWinfo 64. It's a very good hardware monitoring tool. Did they fix the keyboard backlight timeout issue? No, they didn't. So it still times out after like 15 seconds or something. If you're just coming in here, you've got a question, maybe try to scroll up the chat. I don't want to repeat myself too much and waste everybody's time here. What I do when I try to type at night is if the backlight goes off, then I'll just press the control key at the bottom left corner. You know, since that's at the corner, I don't always know where it is. So the backlight comes on again. It's kind of a stupid workaround, but yeah, it's what you do. All right, got HW info. Where's my VC list? Okay. Yep, things are working now. You got it down. Wait, yeah, there we go. So it is the x86 version of the 2013 Visual C++ runtime. All right. So, see, this is what I like a lot about the new Whiskey Lake U processors. The boost clock is a lot higher. This can do. Look at this. This is like 4.4, 4.5 gigahertz on all cores. Now that's nice. Okay. So disable all of these things. One thing that I always do, and I recommend to everyone, is use speed shift instead of speed step. Speed shift is more responsive. It allows your CPU to vary up and down very quickly. If I turn on more data here, the CPU frequency can jump up and down very responsively, and it'll create a smoother, more snappier experience for you when you're just using the operating system. And it also is more efficient, so you save battery while doing that. Okay, so let's see here. So first of all, let's, without changing anything else, so this is pretty much stock settings, let's see how much this thing throttles, shall we? All right, let's run ATS bench here. And let's look at our limit reasons. So let's run 8 threads in the largest size test. So let's start that. So right off the bat, we have a, oh wow, it's going to 50 watts. That's crazy. That's PL2 throttling there. Let's see what the power limits are actually. PL2 is 51 watts. Okay, that's the same as on the Razer Blade Stealth, and then the PL1 is 18 watts. And then now it's being tuned down to 17.5 because DPTF is working here. Will it let you touch the voltages? I've never seen a laptop that doesn't let you touch the voltages. Oh wow, look at this. Temperatures are really low here actually, 69 degrees and at 17 point something watts. CPU frequency at around 2.4 gigahertz. You know, for a MateBook X Pro that's still relying on a single little fan and you know, the same old weird cooling scheme, it's not bad at all actually. Like if I try to make the old X Pro do this, it would just shut off already because it's pulling 16 point something watts. That's as much as the X Pro would do, and at that point, the old X Pro would be at 90 degrees right now. I built a copper fan for my MXP. Hope this will improve temps. Wow. Okay. Are you the same person that commented on my the big red elephant here? Are you the same person that commented on my article saying you built a copper fan? That is really impressive. Only the fan casing is copper, right? I assume you're still using the original fan blades, the fan propeller. If you're not the same person that commented on my article, on my throttling article, then you'd be the second one to do so. That's really cool. You know what? I might want to look into that myself. That's a really cool idea. Yeah. Coil whine. There is still coil whine. It's about the same noise level as before. Has the charging circuitry been fixed? Not really. No. Yes, max load not over 70C. It is power limit throttling, so it is actually now it's throttling pretty badly. But you see, the thing is though, it's premature throttling. So it's kind of like the same behavior that you would see on a Razor Blade Stealth. I made a video about that. You can see that on my channel. It's a review slash test slash rant. But basically it throttles at a really low temperature, completely unnecessary. But this is an indication that the hardware is there to be pushed further. Not charging while working. Okay, good question. So this laptop is being fully stressed on the CPU right now. Let's look at what the charge rate is. 0 watts, but then again, I am at full charge level, so it wouldn't be charging anyway. But at least it's not draining. When my X Pro was stock, it used to actually drain itself under load. I don't think the charging circuit has been fundamentally reworked. It's still in the same place. It's probably like generally the same components. They might have tweaked the control algorithm, but last night when I was just plugging it in and doing Windows updates, it was working pretty hard. And then after the Windows update finished, after I saw no longer any CPU load, the fan was still on somewhat. It is a little bit better, but not completely out of the question, but it is better. Is the coil whine noticeable, loud, or annoying? It's not really. It's a lot better, a lot less annoying than the one on the Razor Blade Stealth. That one was crazy. I've never seen anything like that. Undervolting will always increase performance. Yes. Is the laptop fans loud at the moment? No, the fan is really quiet actually. It's pretty much a low frequency whoosh plus a tiny bit of a high frequency whine that the fan emits. But actually this laptop right here, while it's on YouTube and just it's doing nothing but YouTube, it's hanging out around 60 over 60 degrees. This thing is louder than this while this is on stress test. So the fan, I really like the fan of this one. Let's see if we get because on the old X Pro we used to get fan speed readings right around here in HW Info. Apparently we don't get that anymore. Probably because they went to a custom fan and they didn't bother to expose the EC register reading to the operating system. So we can't know numerically how fast the fan is spinning. But I mean, it's not really that loud. I fell asleep while the fan was running last night, so it's not bad. All right, so the test is done. It's looking good so far. So let's go into undervolting, shall we? Let's see what we can squeeze out without any hardware mods, just through undervolting first. That's the always the first thing you want to try. So my starting point for undervolting, I would say around 85, minus 85 millivolts. I don't care about current limits. Other things will kick in before current limits. So I just get rid of that, whatever. It probably doesn't really change anything. Intel GPU. Okay. Start at minus 40. This might be a little bit too conservative, but it's fine. It's a good starting point. Okay. All right. So now that we've undervolted, let's try another TS bench. I'm just using TS bench instead of like Prime 95 or anything else because I'm lazy and don't want to waste anybody's time downloading extra software. Okay, throttling kicks in again. Now we are, yeah, it always wants to control your temperature at around 69 degrees. And if we look at the power limit here, it's 17 watts right now. It'll probably come down a little bit. So so this is PL1 throttling. Okay, so we're not getting, so the thing that undervolting gives you is at the same wattage, you get better frequencies, and this is what we're seeing right now. Instead of 2.4 gigahertz, we're actually getting around 2.5, 2.6. So that's a good improvement. That's really good. Okay. If you guys are wondering why I'm not doing like Cinebench or any kind of performance test, that's not really necessary at this stage because power itself and frequency is pretty much a direct indicator of performance. Every other factor held constant. So if that's what we're changing, that's the only dependent variable we have to modify. Throttle stop, you can make it load on boot. It is, if you set it up correctly, it is actually a set it and leave it kind of thing. You don't really have to open it up every time. You can use task scheduler. For those of you, you guys should really check out the article I have here called "Actually Hardware Tweaks to Make Your Laptop Faster and More Efficient." This is everything I do when I get a new laptop. Read through it, see what, just try them out. You know, they kind of go in order of like increasing risk or increasing hardcoreness. But yeah, these are all the tweaks that I always do on all of my laptops. Yeah, I mean, hardware is not hardcore. Yes, I'm kind of using hardcore in a very I don't know, liberal way. Whatever, I don't care. Kind of taking inspiration from what's his name? The YouTube channel actually hardcore overclocking. That guy's actually pretty hardcore. All right, so let's see what's next. All right, let's go unlock the power limits. Disable and lock turbo power limits. So let's get this. So there's an extra DLL that you download and put in the throttle stop folder. Oh, it's not a DLL, it's a .sys, I think. Okay. All right. Cool. Let's see what's happening in here. Okay, that's good. Now, if we try another TS bench. Ooh, okay. See what's going on here. Somehow it is not listening to that. Let's see, let me try to change these ones here. So if I set this to be 50 watts and this to be 60 watts, let's see what happens. Do those get reflected in here? Oh, I'm dumb. I forgot to turn throttle stop on. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry, guys. All right. Turns out responding to you guys while doing all this, I don't have enough hyper-threading ability. Okay, why is the power limit not changing here? Why is the power limit not changing? What the heck? Maybe I'll just relaunch HW Info to verify that. Yeah, I know the benchmark's not running, but regardless, it should show the different power limit value. Why is this being so slow here? What the heck? Alright, seems like we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty here. HW info. Alright, let's just run this test again. Alright, so this is actually, undervolting makes this a lot more efficient. But if you look at, okay, so it's thermal throttling at around 90 degrees. Seems like 90 degrees is a thermal throttling point. It is not coming down. Dude, oh my gosh. Okay, so right now it's doing 32 watts. And it's not coming down. It looks like the power limit removal has been successful. Wow. Okay, this is really good. All right. Look at that. You guys see that? Around 30 watts. It's thermal throttling at around 90 degrees. It's able to maintain at least, if not 30, at least the high 20s. That is a lot better. And still, this is like, I think this is as loud as the fan would go. Because this laptop is making the majority of the noise here. I can't even hear, really. I can barely hear my MateBook X Pro over the Lenovo over there. The Lenovo has a stupid fan curve, that's why. You can't really change it. Yeah. Let's see if I can quiet this down. Okay, so it's still hanging at around 26 watts. This is really good. This is a really good starting point, dude. Oh my gosh. Look at that. It's hanging at around 3.1, 3.2 gigahertz. Like, this is actually on par with the Razer Blade Stealth, albeit at 20 degrees more, 20 degrees hotter. But who cares, like, this is good performance. Wow. Okay. All right. So looking good so far. You know what? Going back to the question of whether the extra 200 euros is worth it to choose the 2019 over the 2018, I would say, for me personally, hell yeah, dude. In addition, like, just if you're after that extra performance, like, this gives you so much more. Damn, this is really good. And now HW Info decides to come on, but yeah, this is really good. And now we see that the power limits are now gone, so that's really nice. Okay, what else can we do here before we go into the hardware mods, or just, we're not going to actually implement any hardware mods because I don't have the parts yet. I've ordered heat pipes, but they haven't come yet. Okay, let's download Msi Afterburner. See what GPU performance we can get here. Okay, so let's download Combustor as well. For the GPU stress tests. Download link Afterburner. There we go. All right. Okay, let's do a GPU stress test. All right, stressing the GPU. Check the load. Performance limit power. So, okay. Yeah, so we reach power limit, the 10 watt power limit, before we reach any kind of thermal limit. It's at 80 degrees and still climbing, but It's a similar situation to a slightly modded MX Pro, slightly modded as in if you only did, I would say thermal paste and GPU copper shim. Like this is around that level. In fact, I would say that the 2019 X Pro is like the 2018 performance with like 80% of my mods. That's how high the starting point is. It's really good. I mean, it's not perfect, nowhere near perfect, but this is, I do appreciate the improvement here. $82. I don't think it's going to climb that much from here. So it's mainly a power limit thing. Let's run the setup for Afterburner. I'll stop this for now. I don't want Riva Tuna Statistics Server. I remember when I installed that a long time ago, it created problems for Microsoft Office where GPU acceleration no longer worked in any of the Office programs, so I don't need it anyway, so I'm not really keen to install that one. I don't need to monitor that. Okay, so this is really small. Let me change that. Msi Afterburner, more open file location, properties. So Afterburner, let's try 200 megahertz on both overclock. All right. So let's do another Combustor stress test. Let's go. Let's see what the limit reason is. Power, yeah. Can we push this further? Let's see. Let's do 250. No, not really. The power limit is really stringent here. Yeah. I mean, I think the extra 50 megahertz just made it worse or something. Yeah, it kind of just throttles according to power at this point. I'm not an expert in GPU overclocking, so if I'm being a noob here, bear with me. Or better, give me some tips. Okay, 83 degrees. I think it's still not, yeah, it's still not thermal throttling the GPU. However, let's try this. Let's go all out. Let's stress both the CPU and GPU at the same time. Let's try to get this thing shut down. How about that? Because that's what happened when I unlocked the power limits before doing any of my hardware mods. I got my old X Pro to just completely shut itself down. Like there's no warning or anything beforehand. It's just boom, off. Yeah, so the CPU goes to 90 degrees. Okay, this is being really hot right now. Well, that's cool. I don't mind. The palm rest is still cool. So there's more thermal mass that we can actually use here, and that's what the graphite sheet mod does actually. Okay, so we are at 2.4 gigahertz on the CPU and over 900 megahertz on the GPU, and the GPU is bottlenecked by utilization. Okay, you know what? Let's stop this. How do we stop this thing? Combustor. Let's change to a different resolution. How about that? Let's do a 4K test. See if that makes a difference. Oh, that actually brings the clock speed for the GPU further down. All right, so do you guys have any more questions while we run this thing? You can ask me about anything, as long as I can answer them. Okay, okay. I think that we're good with this test. All right. I think we can move on to the teardown. How about that? Hey, who wants to see teardown? Spam the chat. Oh hell yeah! All right. Wait. Somehow my other computer. Oh here. Okay. All right. There we go. How's the temperature of the underside where the battery resides? It's not bad. I'm resting my hand on it, and I am not in pain, so that's a good sign. Any idea when the MateBook X Pro will be available? My guess is that never. It'll never be available. Because from what it looks like, unless the situation takes a U-turn, Huawei will not be able to produce any more Intel laptops. So my guess is that the MateBook X Pro will actually cease production later this year. That's my guess. I wouldn't count on it being available in the US or Europe. Actually, Europe, I can't say all of Europe, but definitely US, no way. Yeah, keyboard timer's still there. Okay, let's turn off the laptop and tear it down. How can we get our hands on it then? Good question. I happened to know somebody from China who brought it over for me yesterday. But if you don't, then I would say AliExpress, perhaps? Yeah, it's a tough one. Canada. Is it on sale in Canada? Okay, wait. Are we talking about 2018 or 2019 here? Cuz I mean, the 2018 is still kind of around in North America. You can get that relatively easily, but the 2019, that's a whole nother deal. All right, so let me unplug this, and let's see if we can push my monitor back a little bit. It's kind of dangerous. All right, what if you guys faced me like that? Would that work? How's the video feed looking now? Okay, I think this looks all right. Yeah? Oh man, I'm working with a 3-second delay here. But I think I've got the hang of it. There's some, excuse me, there's some eraser. Okay, so here's the bottom. Let me actually put it like this. I should get I'm going to use my mouse pad here. All right, this is good. I've got my iFixit toolkit here. Okay, so we want to use a Torx 5 screwdriver. I use this one because the bit that came with my kit is kind of worn out. So, all right, let's start. I should probably have some anti-static protection, but whatever. I'll face the consequences if anything happens. I don't think it will. I've done many teardowns without anti-static, but I have to say, please do get ESD protection for yourself. Don't be lazy like me. I'm setting a really bad example. 一直以为这老兄是国人. Yep. Okay. Somebody commented in Chinese. Saying, I always thought you were Chinese. I am Chinese. I was actually born in China. I came to the U.S. for high school when I was 14. Group the screws if they are different. I just remember the screws of this computer like the back of my hand now, so I don't really care. I know what screws go where. Hey, why don't you all comment in the chat where you're watching from? Where is everybody from? Okay, so let's get my, is my guitar pick still in here? Yep, it is. It's kind of worn out. The first disassembly is always the hardest. There we go. Vancouver, Canada, Argentina, USA, Germany, Netherlands, New York, Florida. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, there's the middle tab there. It's being very reluctant. All right, there we go. It's off. Ta-da! All right. So, let me turn it around for you guys. Same layout. Fan's bigger. Let me actually grab, I have the old motherboard here, but let me grab more of the old parts to compare. Okay. Yeah, the AliExpress does look sketchy. Yeah. I don't know. Now, I think they said, I read that the 2019 X Pro and MateBook 14 and 13 are coming to Singapore. So that's another country that's not China that you could potentially get it from. So this is my modded old casing with the graphite sheets. And this is the old heatsink. So, god damn, look at that. Disregard the heat pipes there, but other than that, you know, the fan, look at how much bigger that is. It's like a, yeah, it's just fatter in every way. But actually the propeller looks largely the same. It's just the casing that's different. That's interesting. It's a pretty good fan. It's kind of quiet, even though it's the RPM's pretty high. Okay, and then also you can notice that there's perforations on the areas for the VRM. So that was a big issue for the X Pro. That was the first bottleneck of the old X Pro, where the VRM was overheating. And so they decided to perforate everything. I mean, yeah, this is a way to go. Another way to go is to do what I did, which was put, well, they're gone now, but thermal pads on top of the VRM chips. But that requires more work, so might as well just, you know, let air flow through it, right? But this is probably like less heavy duty than what I did. Okay, so let's continue. Let's dig down. So what have we got here? Okay, everything else looks exactly the same. But oh, SSD here. So I got a Western Digital 1 terabyte SSD. Look at that. Western Digital. The SSD varies with region and batches. Like, it's kind of random. So if you get a 2019 X Pro, you may well get a different SSD. Jason says this is the last Huawei laptop. Unfortunately, I think that might just be true. Isn't that sad? The SSD gap seems bigger. Maybe. Looks like there's a, I mean, it might be because of how the heatsink is constructed here. Like, it, you know, it has a little bit of flex here, so it can kind of curl up on the corner there. Okay, switching to a Phillips 0 screwdriver. It's PH0 from the Fix-It toolkit for the little screws here. So first thing you always have to do to access the internals is to get rid of the heatsink. How's my phone battery doing? Oh, 70%, good. Yeah, a lot of sad sentiment going on here. Yeah. I feel the same. But you know what? Okay, let me tell you guys a story. Let me tell you guys a story. It was from a few days ago. So, if you have just tuned in, I broke my old MateBook X Pro last winter break in January. and I've been using my backup Lenovo laptop ever since. And the whole time I've been looking for an upgrade, a replacement, you know. And it's like the MateBook X Pro was the one true love, you know. And when you lose that one true love, you just kind of you feel lost. You go around, you're looking for a replacement, but you can't really find one because it was the one. So I kind of just shopped around a little bit for a while. I grabbed a XPS 15 2-in-1 with the KB Lake G. That was overclockable. That was really interesting. Intel accidentally left the overclock open. Left the thing unlocked. One of my favorite blunders. And then I also tested out the Razer Blade Stealth. By the way, I made a video about it. Check it out on my channel. The Razer Blade Stealth throttled severely and in a really disgusting way because they implemented it in the EC, the embedded controller, and it was in the firmware. The throttling algorithm was in the firmware, so there was no way you could get rid of the throttling. I tried everything from BIOS mods to, you know, fan control softwares, all that jazz. Read-write everything. It's a completely closed off throttling mechanism. So I returned that. And also, you know, you can't really go back from the 14-inch, well, 13.9-inch 3x2 display on the X Pro. You really can't go back from that to a 13.3-inch 16:9 display. How do you remember which screw goes where? When you have disassembled this machine as many times as I have, you'll remember. But serious answer though, there's actually a pattern here. So you see all the squares etched into the heatsink aluminum plate? The squares indicate the tiniest screws. So those would be the very smallest. And then the circles, let me show you one of those here. The circles indicate the slightly bigger ones. And then these biggest ones are for the fan and for the heatsink base plate mounts, like these for the GPU. So yeah, it's if you just go by that system, you're good. Okay, let's see if there's any more screws that we have to get off. Doesn't look like it. Let's see if we can take this off now. It's coming off, guys. Oh wow, okay. They put these really gooey thermal pads on the VRAM. That's interesting. That's really interesting. And then they also padded the SSD. Oh my gosh. Okay, you know, I've always thought that maybe, just maybe, Huawei looked at my mods and kind of, you know, got some inspiration from that. They started rolling out 1903 yesterday. Cool. What's the border surrounding the CPU, GPU? Oh, you mean this thing? I mean, I would say, like, if they weren't there, it'd still be fine. I think it's like for either like insulation or to separate out the heat zones. But not all laptops have these separations, so it's not really all that important, really. One thing to note though is that there's another like separator here. This is foam, and I think that's to create a air seal, because the fan, when it spins, it draws air across the heatsink, right? So you'd want it to you want to force and direct the air to go this way. So I think that's why this is here, but it's shaped in a weird way. I don't know. The level of sophistication in this has really gone up, but really, you know, it's the result of a lot of like ghetto mods, really, like kind of like afterthoughts. I mean, like extra thermal pads. Okay, sure, like everybody does that, but like just overall, you know, like it's really a patch job. It's not like a complete rework. It's just like, oh, all of these things were broken on the previous version. Let's just like take this, see what we can put on it to like try to patch it up, you know. All right, so that's the heatsink. I think the thickness of the heatsink is the same. These are the two heatsinks. So mine was a really early model, the 2018 X Pro. It was a really early from 2018. Nick is my friend who I did the mods for. He has the same laptop. His unit has this kind of covering on the inside of the heatsink. It looks kind of like the same material that they have in like Kapton tape. I don't know. That's just a random guess, but I don't think it matters that much. But it's pretty cool that they padded the SSD though, because the SSD was throttling. At first, I thought like, oh my gosh, my 960 Pro was throttling to like 99 degrees Celsius. That's crazy. The sensor must be wrong. And I remember someone on Reddit asking the same question, and we're like, oh my gosh, the sensor must be wrong then. But no, like the SSD was literally getting that hot. So EMI shield. Oh yes, for easier RF EMC compliance. You got it. See, Larry's a good friend of mine. He's always got my back. He's always got the answers. Soldered on Wi-Fi again. No perfect Hackintosh, goddammit. Yes. So it's only going to become more and more integrated, because with Ice Lake, right? Like the Wi-Fi card essentially is going to be in the SoC. So, and there's only going to be like an external kind of interface for the antennas to plug into. And then looking at the charging circuit, that's, you know, another important thing here. The opening for the charging circuit is bigger now. So they've got this, you know, this kind of foil thing for blocking interference. This shield, right? The opening here used to be smaller. Now they have better thermal pad contact. They're also using a different type of thermal pad. That's good. The type here looks like the more thermally conductive type. Just visually, it looks kind of like the what was it called? TGX that I'm using. The T Global brand thermal pads with 12 watts per meter Kelvin. So that's good. So this is a Western Digital SN720 SSD. That's pretty cool. This is actually worth something. I mean, I'm going to swap it out with my 970 Pro anyway, but yeah. Okay, let's see what else. Battery's the same. Still 7.6 volts. And this might present a problem if you don't set a power limit on battery. More CPU VRM phases. Yes, good call. Let's check that. Okay, let's see. Is there more phases? No, I think it's the same. The EC here is different though. Whereas they used to have the ITE 8987 VG, they now have, what is this brand? I remember this this logo. I just can't put the face to a name. But the chip right there is different. I don't think that matters to the average user though. And there's also this like little, looks like aluminum, I think, surround on the edge of the CPU, which we've seen on KB Lake G, I believe, and also of course a lot of the Whiskey Lake U. That's kind of interesting. Now this would pose an even bigger problem, I think, for anyone who would want to do liquid cooling. I don't recommend that. That's actually how my old X Pro died. You know, if everything goes right, then nothing will happen, but you can never guarantee that nothing will go wrong, right? Okay, let's dig in further. So I think it's a good time now to unplug the battery. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Busy chatting with you guys, which I thoroughly enjoy right now. Okay, just gonna peel this off, because that prevents you from being able to access the battery connector. Let's see, the connector, is it different this time? I don't think so. Wait. Looks like you just pull it straight out, but it's tighter than before. The connector from last time, yeah, it's the same exact connector, it's just tighter. Let me get a tool for that. Orso says check usual 2018 trackpad wobble and speaker issues. So both of those have been largely eliminated. And I'll get to the speakers. I'll actually take the speakers off in a bit. Okay, there we go. All right, battery's out. Okay. The battery uses the same kind of screws as the base plates of the heatsink. They're completely interchangeable. All right, battery's out. So yeah, the thing about the battery being 7.6 volts is that its instantaneous power output is not quite up to par with the type of power we're trying to pull from it. So that'll actually create a blackout when it'll just fail to supply enough voltage and your computer will just die if it asks for more power out of the battery. So we might have to end up setting a power limit while on battery at around 60 watts for the entire computer, which translates to perhaps about 30 watts or 35 for the CPU for the CPU package. That's accounting for if the GPU was also stressed at the same time. So okay, so we've got the same kind of chamber here. Nothing's changed there. Everything that you see here is the exact same. Yep, everything's the same. Okay, let me just turn this around. All right, I'm really glad the audio video quality is working out for you. Okay, let's see. Let's get the SSD out. So this is one of those warranty stickers that they use. I'm just gonna punch right through it. I don't care. It's not like I'm gonna get any warranty service anyway. Thank you very much. You are welcome, and thank you all for tuning in. All right, SSD out. Same kind of foam pad under the SSD to just support it. Let's see, next we can get rid of the speaker connectors. I'm going to take a little tweezer here, peel the little, oh crap, can't really get enough grip. Okay, yeah. There's like these textile covers over all of the connectors. You gotta peel off before you can access them. I think a copper cover for the fan could be more difficult than the old one because of the indentation around the blades. That is a very good point. That is a very good point. See, I'm. What do you guys think about the indentation? Like, what is the aerodynamic reasoning for that? Because I haven't, although I'm a mechanical engineering major, I have not taken a class in aerodynamics yet, so I can't really speak to that. So the speaker connector comes out like that. There we go. All right. All right. Let me just partially dislodge a speaker to see what kind of anti-vibration damping we have here. So the speaker uses these really short, stubby, flat, large head screws to work with these little rubber rings, also for anti-vibration purposes. So it's the exact same speaker arrangement as the later model 2018 X Pros. If you look on bradshacks.com/MateBook/MateBook-X-Pro-speakers, you'll see that I have reported that the later model 2018 X Pros have these foam kind of spongy pads on the bottom of the speaker. All right, everyone. Look at Larry's response. He's explaining the fan. Visual difference on the speaker improvements. What do you mean by that? Because it's the exact same speaker as the later gen 2018 X Pros. So this means that I pretty much don't have to do anything to these speakers. All I have to worry about is the software calibration, the equalization, frequency response correction. Just, yeah, measure it, put on this frequency response correction, and then put on dynamic Q. If you guys don't know about dynamic Q, check out github.com/brad331/dynamicu. It's like dynamic, except the C is replaced with a Q. It is the speaker enhancement package that I've developed for the MateBook X Pro and also usable for other laptops. It'll boost the bass and the volume, and it works with a very scientific method of correcting the speaker's frequency response, which is, well, pretty simple. You just measure the frequency response. You apply a equalizer to counteract it. But yeah, it works with that. It's essentially what Apple does with their MacBook Pro speakers. They have frequency response correction and they have volume dependent bass boost, so that you get more bass when the volume level is low enough to allow that. And if you demand more volume, the bass will kind of reduce itself to make way for the other frequencies, so you can actually have more volume. Also, while I'm doing this, let me pull up some notes from yesterday. I had a few things that I wanted to address. I think I've addressed most of them already. Mostly just differences between the two models. So, one thing that I notice is that the fan control algorithm is more responsive. So, this means that, okay, so first of all, on the old 2018 X Pro, when you introduce a stress to the system, when the CPU gets stressed and it gets hot, the fan will spin up. But then it spins up like really reluctantly, and then it'll like spin up like full on, and then it'll kind of just stay there, and it takes a really long time to come back down. Whereas in the 2019 X Pro, the fan follows the CPU frequency, CPU temperature a lot more closely. So it only has like a maximum 1 second delay to the load, which means that whereas the 2018 X Pro would start throttling before the fan has time to come on, that situation is reduced, largely reduced in the 2019. And then also, as I mentioned, the fan is quieter, so noise normalized performance is a lot better. Oh, another thing about the hinge. So the hinge is tighter on my unit. I don't know if it's like the entire model or just my unit, but the hinge does feel tighter. And that's it. Everything else I have already addressed. So let's continue with this teardown, shall we? SSD speed. I kind of don't want to really like go into SSD benchmarks, because other than throttle, like if you just find another, like if you find the SSD model, which Western Digital SN720 here, if you just find that, you get the benchmarks for it. That's pretty much it. But the main thing is that I can't guarantee that everybody else is going to have the same SSD model, so. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good model. I've read about it before. These ribbon connectors can sometimes be a pain to get out. You also don't want to stab these. That would be very bad. Okay, good. Again, a keyboard connector. There's a little like Kapton tape over the connector for what I believe is the... That one's the trackpad. That one's the keyboard. This is a keyboard backlight, I think. Or maybe wrong. disconnect the Wi-Fi antennas. I think it's kind of dumb that the antennas are here and here. This looks like space for fin stacks for an actual heatsink, but they kind of just wasted it for Wi-Fi antennas, which are, I mean, they're tiny. I mean, they may well just be here, right? That's a whole lot of space wasted. I mean, that's about, 5 by 5 centimeters by like 0.3 centimeters. So, that's like 25 times, like, I would say 0.5. So that's about like 13 cubic centimeters of space wasted, in this laptop. When you put it that way, it's actually quite a lot. What HP did with their Spectre X360 is they actually made the speaker come down into this space, so the speaker chamber could actually be bigger. And that's pretty clever. Imagine how much better the speakers would be if Huawei did the same thing. Touchpad issues, largely resolved, but it may vary from unit to unit. In case you're tuning in later than everybody else, that's the situation. Okay, let's dig deeper. So let's just dislodge all of these. Sometimes there's a screw under the ribbon cable. You gotta mind that one. Okay, let's get rid of the fan first, actually. Okay. So the fan uses these screws with these unthreaded shoulders here. Whoops. The fan connector, gotta disconnect that. Come on. Okay. All right. Check this out. That's the fan. Oh, wow. Okay, so the fan is once again produced by AVC. So if you look at the old fan, if I can get to all of this, oh yeah, I forgot. I removed the sticker already, but it's the same company. It's the same company that makes the fan. Huawei just told them to go make a better one. Alright, it's got this nice foam rubbery seal on both sides. And it seems to be a more accurately applied seal, especially on this side. Whereas the old one was just like kind of a sparse foam, more of a spongy material. This one's a lot more solid. This should be a better seal. So I don't plan on, at least right now, removing this because it's pretty good as it is. So just continuing to unscrew all the screws on the motherboard. There's quite a lot of them. Wi-Fi and Palmrest usually result crap performance. Yeah, that's true. I'm just saying, like, they could be somewhere else, like, what if they were, I don't know. Is that, like, really the only place you could put them, I mean, the thing is, with these MateBooks, as well as the new MacBook Pros, there's no display controller or any of that stuff in the display assembly. Everything's moved down into this area right below the hinge. So for example, here's the display cable, right? And then Wi-Fi antennas, and like, this is all like stuff for the display. This is also a ribbon cable that goes to the display. So, that kind of occupies a lot of space that could have been used for cooling. It's just a trade-off that you're going to have to make. However, the MateBook 13, I think, solved that quite nicely. I forgot how exactly. I think they just had a slightly thicker bottom bezel. That was it. Wow, this thing is really gooey. This is like gum levels of gooey. That's interesting. I'll clean that off later. Let's see what else. Let's see, there's another screw here. Keep in mind the case is metal. Yeah, that's true. That's true. See, Larry's always fact-checking me. Can the new fan be mounted on the old board? Let's see. Let's see. Here's a old case. Here's a new fan. I think it can. Actually, I think it's missing a screw. Wait, is it? No, it looks like the same mounting points actually. I think it's yeah, it's the same mounting points. Yep, I think so. If you can get your hands on a new fan, I don't think mounting it would be a problem at all. Oh, there's more ribbon connectors here. All right, motherboard's coming out. Oh shoot, forgot this one little screw in the corner. There we go. All right, motherboard is out. Okay. So let's compare the back side of the motherboard. Oh, this is interesting. So the old motherboard used to have this kind of shielding all across the back of the motherboard. This all used to be shielded. But now this is not shielded, except for this part right here. That's a difference. And then the mounting point for the CPU bracket, this mounting point is different. GPU bracket is the same, or largely the same. And everything else looks pretty similar to me. The traces on the motherboard look a little different though. But you'd expect that since it's really a different circuit. Okay, so what else would you guys like to see? The new connector is larger. Oh yeah, you're right. Crap. The new connector is... Oh shit. Okay, so it's got it's got 8 pins instead of 4. So I mean, you'd have to do some hack to the connector to make it work then. Thanks for catching that, big red elephant. Thank you. And then electrically, let's see, the fan is now 5 volt, 0.5 amps. I remember it's the same, I think. I could be wrong. I think the power level is the same. But yeah, I mean, the propeller's the same, so. I mean, impeller, yeah. I think it's impeller instead of propeller. Whatever, you know what I mean. Can you share the full fan model? I wouldn't mind trying that. Okay, if you want to try that anyway. The model is... Get ready. Take a screenshot. Right there. You got it? Alright. Okay, what else would you guys like to see? I do need to... Let's see. I eventually will have to take these out as well for the graphite sheet mod. Oh, and there's this thing now. What is this for? It doesn't do anything. Now, this strip right here, this was not on the earlier units of the 2018 model either. So, it's not that important. We could do without it. That gives us a little bit more area for the graphite sheets to stick onto. So let's get these off. And while I'm doing that, let's talk about laptop performance. So there's the very common argument that if you're looking for more performance in a laptop, yes, the keyboard is still spill-proof, by the way. Screen hinge improvements. It seems tighter, but I don't think there's other differences. So as I was saying, a lot of people say, oh, you know, if you want a more performant laptop, just get a gaming laptop. Get a bigger one. You know, just settle for what's already out there, because that thing already exists. It's just heavier, that's all. And I'm like, no, like, why don't you think outside of that, you know? Why won't you be willing to think and just imagine a laptop that is smaller, more portable, sleeker, yet faster? Like, why don't you think that could be possible? Because the PC industry, don't assume that the PC industry is all that great. Don't assume that they're all that competent or that they care that much. Okay, so, you know, a lot of them aren't really trying that hard. If they did, we'd have a lot better laptops. Just take the Razer Blade Stealth, for example. Like, that thing could have been a lot better. But probably, you know, this is one of the pains of being an engineer probably, which is you come with something great. You know, you're a mechanical engineer, you come up with a great cooling system for the laptop, and then marketing comes in and says, oh, we need the laptop to run really cool. Like, and you're like, okay, yeah, 80 degrees, that's pretty good, and that's well within the, you know, safety margins. And they're like, no. Users don't understand the type of temperature range that the CPU is supposed to be operating in. They think that cool means 50 degrees. So you gotta, you know, you gotta make it operate under 50 degrees. So guess what? You just have, you walk over to the, or they walk over to the firmware department and say, you know what, we need this laptop to be under 50 degrees. You better make that happen. And so the firmware department has no way of doing that except to throttle the laptop severely. And now it's like, now it comes to like the idea of whether it's negligence or incompetence, whether they weren't able, by the way, don't need this, to implement it the proper way, which is configurable in the BIOS, configurable in throttle stop, you know, just using the regular protocols of implementing power limits. But no, like they decided to implement it in the embedded controller. And yes, I'm still salty about that, because if that didn't happen, I might as well just be using a Razer Blade Stealth now. It's a trade-off between being safe and pushing the extremes. That's right, but you know, at a certain point, it's like, it's beyond safe. It's beyond just safe. It's just too much, dude. And I mean, even Apple, like, they do push the extremes, but it's not like their computers are known for being, like, unsafe. It's still all right, I would say. Yeah. Larry and I had talked about this before. Razer Blades, their MOSFETs used to burn up. So they're kind of like overcompensating on that safety factor. But, you know, the other thing that I want to say about laptops is that, like, look at what we've got now. Look at the situation now. The Huawei ban, now the Huawei ban is happening. Like, the best laptop that ever existed, you know, at least in my and many of our opinions, the best laptop that ever existed is going to just disappear. Or at least, like, if not this year, the next year, it probably won't happen again. And the situation is that the next one that even comes, you know, relatively close is like, at best, 70% as good. You know? How would you compare this to, say, an X1 OLED 2019? Oh, the X1 Extreme? That's a pretty good laptop. I do like ThinkPads. I like the keyboard, as everybody does. Performance is not bad, and it's actually pretty light for a 15-inch laptop. By the way, guys, this is the camera module. How does this work? It's got a little spring here, I think. But where's the spring? Wait a second. Is it actually using the ribbon cable itself as a spring? That would be crazy. I think it's actually using the ribbon cable as a spring. That's funny. because I don't see another spring in here. That's cool. Okay, so those are the ribbon cables going to the display. So this is the LCD controller right here. Normally this would be in the display assembly itself, but in order to make this computer bezel-less, they moved it into the main chassis. Let's see what else is here. There's a little more fabric here. Do you think anyone steals some of the ideas from Huawei since they won't be in the same market anymore? Yeah, I can totally see that happening. In fact, have you seen the Lenovo Idea Books? No, sorry, Think Books. Yeah, because they've got IdeaPad and ThinkPad. Wait, is that what they're called? Think Books? All I remember is that they came out with like a new line of laptops. No. What are they called? They look hella like the MateBook. Wait, is my phone not working? It's still live streaming, right? Okay. Good. No more MateBook Surface is my next choice. I mean, yeah, like Surface is not that bad. It's one of the better ones, but like still they're not very. I don't know. There's so many missed opportunities in the hardware design. What do you think about the Lenovo Yoga S940? So I actually ordered one and then I canceled the order a few days ago, right before I ordered this one, because I didn't know that it doesn't have a touchscreen. I didn't know, and so yeah, I can't have no touchscreen. So that's just me. But if you're fine with not having a touchscreen, then it's a decent laptop. It doesn't have two more things that it misses though is it doesn't have a DGPU, and it doesn't have USB-A ports. So it's like a close second to the MateBook, but is the headphone jack noisy? I haven't tested that, sorry. Have you had any experience with the Xiaomi's? The Xiaomi laptops, I've only played with them briefly in a Xiaomi store in China. They're very nice for the price, very good value, but I think they still operate in a different kind of segment than the MateBooks. The MateBook is just more high-end. Because, see, when you're paying for a laptop, often you're not just paying for performance itself. It's not a function of price with respect to performance, but it's rather a function of price with respect to performance density, which is measured by performance over weight or performance over volume, right? And the MateBook pretty much comes out on top in terms of performance density. Nothing can really rival that, except for maybe the Razer Blade Stealth and the HP Envy 13. Okay, so that's all that stuff. Let's see, what else do we have here? I don't want to take off the speakers. It's kind of, I mean, yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. Whatever. I can pull it all back together again within 30 minutes. So let me show you guys the treble speakers, the tweeters. Is it worth getting the 2019 model after the Microsoft issue? Good question. So that's I think what a lot of people are asking. And should I keep mine or return it? I may be slightly biased, but I would keep mine. I mean, I literally bought this 3 days ago. Like while everybody is fleeing away from Huawei, I'm still coming head on to it, because I'm not that worried, to be honest, about the ecosystem abandoning this. I don't think that's really going to happen. At least not to anywhere near the extent that everybody is fearing at the moment. Yeah, John is right. The updates can still be installed. I don't think Microsoft is gonna go that far out of their way to like actively blacklist you from accessing Windows. Like, I don't think they'll actually do that. I don't think they're mandated by the government to do that either. All the government is all the U.S. government is saying with the ban is that no U.S. company can export materials or equipment to Huawei. But that's different from, let's say, allowing the computer to receive Windows updates and things like that. If I send it out for repair, I won't be able to get it back. I don't think so. I think you'll be able to get it back. I don't see why you wouldn't. The ban is, again, about companies supplying materials and equipment to Huawei. It's not about. It's not like a MateBook is now a prohibited item to go on an airplane, or go into customs. Like, if you mailed a MateBook or any Huawei product through customs, through the U.S. customs, they would. I don't think they'll have any problem with it. Like, I don't see any reason why they should. It's not the product itself that's the problem. This is just, we are living in the tech Cold War right now. Okay. All of it is just politics. All of it is just economics. Okay, and the things that I, as an engineering student, really don't have a right to speak to, or the expertise to speak to. But it's not even about like the like, nobody's gonna care, okay, about a Huawei laptop. That's not the focus of the situation. That's not the focus. The focus is the telecommunications equipment that Huawei makes. All of this is just getting dragged into this, okay? If it weren't for all the telecommunication stuff, if it weren't for the battle for 5G, they wouldn't give a crap about some laptops, Anyway, here's the tweeter. It has a fabric kind of cover. So here's how it works. So the neodymium magnet is on the back, and then there's a voice coil and a speaker diaphragm on the opposite side of it, that when electricity comes to it, and there is a varying voltage, is a varying voltage or a varying current. Anyway, electricity comes to it, makes the coil act essentially as a electromagnet, which makes the diaphragm vibrate, and it vibrates the air inside the little enclosure here, and the air pressure waves come through the fabric covering and through the speaker grills, and that's what gives you the nice Dolby Atmos sound. Yes, exactly. MateBooks are the collateral damage of this trade war. What laptop do you suggest apart from X Pro? Um, if you had to, if you had to not go with Huawei, if you had to, then I don't know. There's the other end of the spectrum. Like, just get a U.S. company. I was talking to a friend the other day. Like, oh, if I carry around this Huawei on UC Berkeley's campus, people are gonna know. Like, oh man, this is a Chinese student for sure. Someone who doesn't like. I don't. People are gonna be like, I don't trust Huawei. You trust Huawei, therefore I don't trust you. Well, first of all, I don't trust Huawei. I just use their products because they're nice. But anyway, like I was saying, like, what if like perhaps for like the social impact of my life, I should get a different laptop. But yes, Lenovo's Chinese now too. Yes, Lenovo has actually always been Chinese. I think you meant ThinkPads is Chinese. ThinkPad is Chinese because they bought that part of IBM. But yeah, Lenovo has always been Chinese. If I had to recommend something on the other side of the spectrum, I would say HP NV13. That thing has an MX250 as well. Whiskey Lake U, the 8565U i7. It has a 4K 13.3 inch 16 by 9 aspect ratio display. I don't think it's as bright as the Huawei's, but it's a 4K. It's kind of like the same display that the Razer Blade Stealth 4K uses. Do you think the security issue in their phones are with their laptops? So the thing about the security issue that everybody's talking about is just a bunch of unfounded speculation, and it's really just it's just all fear. It's fear and risk minimization. Because sure, Huawei has had vulnerabilities in their PC manager drivers. That's been reported by Microsoft. By the way, I'm going to start reassembling things now. That's Microsoft has found security vulnerabilities in Huawei's drivers, which they immediately patched up after that. But that's not, none of that stuff is definitive proof that Huawei is implementing backdoors in their consumer electronics for the Chinese government. Like there's no concrete evidence to prove that. But as far as the U.S. government is concerned, that's concrete evidence is not necessarily what they need to go ahead and ban these things, right? They have every reason to do it because of the trade war. So it's like they can do whatever the hell they want to. If they don't like a country, they can just do whatever the hell they want to. If they don't like a company, they'll just take actions against the company. And that's exactly what they've done. Intel ME for backdoors, yeah, exactly. There's the kind of same kind of situation. Like, it's just, there is a vulnerability in a piece of software made by a company. How you interpret that situation is completely up to you. It varies. It's in the eye of the beholder, because you can say, oh, they weren't being careful enough and accidentally left in a vulnerability that they overlooked, right? And that's kind of the mainstream explanation for the Intel ME backdoors, is that is Spectre Meltdown the same kind of thing? I think it's that's what you're talking about, right? Anyway, there's Intel vulnerabilities. So you can see it as just a blunder, or you can see it as intentional. The only difference is when that company is from a rival country in the trade war, that's when people interpret it willingly as intentional. Whether it is actually intentional, well, nobody really knows, right? Where was this supposed to go? So this plate goes right here. Regarding Dell XPS, Uh, I don't know. They're less performant, but the XPS 13 actually has like decent cooling now. It has 2 fans and a proper heatsink. But again, it's just like it just somehow feels like a lower caliber laptop than the MateBook. It has no DGPU in the 13. Um, it has no USB Type A ports because of their silly carbon fiber construction. And have you seen how thick the bottom plates, the bottom lids of the XPS 13s are? Or the entire XPS line for that matter. It's about 1.5 to 2 millimeters thick. That's a whole lot of thickness wasted to just structural components. If they didn't have that, or the also thick carbon fiber, they could have had a lot more internals. They could have also had the USB Type A port. I mean, is it carbon fiber or plastic? I think it's like a mixture. It's kind of a synthetic mixture. I don't think it's actually weaved, like woven carbon fiber. Uh, the carbon fiber weave that you see on the outside, I think that's just fake. It's more of a resin based kind of thing. That would be my guess. Don't quote me on that though. Either way, it's not as good as aluminum, in my opinion, for the construction of a laptop case. Oh shoot, these cables kind of annoying here. You know, after all, there's a lot of things that people buy that don't have as much support as you expect. So I don't think it's really that much of a problem. Okay, let's talk about the worst case scenario actually. Right, worst case scenario, Microsoft does a half-assed job of blacklisting the MateBook X Pro from Windows. There's probably going to be a hack around that. First of all, there's probably going to be, and then, I mean, think about it. Like, okay, our subreddit, r/MateBook X Pro, has more than 3,000 people, but you got to consider the millions of users in China who use Windows on these MateBooks, right? What are they gonna do? They're gonna come with something for sure. If we don't, so I'm not worried. By the way, where'd you guys Did you guys know about the live stream? Did you see it on the subreddit? I'll just move to China. That's funny. Did you guys see it on the subreddit, or did you guys see it on my blog or my YouTube channel? Where are you guys coming from? Subreddit. Cool, cool, cool. CIA told me about it. Okay. Where's the screw supposed to go? Oh, right here. Yeah. Wait, actually. On your blog and YouTube channel. Cool. Wow, you guys are coming from all over the place, huh? Any real difference between MX150 and MX250? Not really. I don't think you would notice. Like, if you were subject to a blind test, then I don't think you would tell the difference. And that's because the performance difference with every other factor held constant is about 5%. However, when you're comparing the two models of the X Pro, the 2 years of the X Pro, that's not the only difference that that's involved here. Because of the better cooling system in the 2019 X Pro, you are going to get overall better gaming performance. Is it a 10 watt or 25 watt? It is 10 watts. I checked. It is the 1D52 model device ID, which indicates that it is the low power version. By the way, hope you guys don't mind. I'm going to plug some things of mine right now. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I will have more content like this in the future. Whatever laptop I have at the moment, I'll always be modding it. So if you're into laptop mods, whether you are or are not a MateBook X Pro owner, which I assume most of you are watching this stream, but you know, I'll always be modding laptops, and for as long as I own this one, I'll be modding this one, so that's probably more relevant to you guys. So yeah, please subscribe. A lot of other things coming up. A lot of work still to do on this laptop. I'm forgetting where my parts are supposed to be, though. And then also, let's talk about audio. Is it worth getting the last version? Yeah, I mean, if you're on a budget, I would say it's still a pretty good option. But I mean, depends on, you know, what your requirements are. Like if you I would say either you don't really mind a loud laptop, or you don't really mind a slow laptop. Or you don't mind modifying your own laptop. One of those three, like, if it has to be one, you have to be one of those three, you know, for the old one, because it really is kind of like in many ways it still is kind of a mess, in terms of, you know, the thermal problems. So, yeah. But, you know, I would still, like, the fact has not changed that it is still one of the best laptops out there, if not the best. And it's not just me saying this, right? It's apparently the reviewers are saying this too. So that hasn't changed. Like Huawei hasn't done anything different in the past month. The only thing that's changed is the U.S. government's action against it. So, by the way, if you look at Huawei's CEO, he's been doing a lot of interviews these days. He's got this like resting hurt face. It's like he's crying every time he's talking. Like he's got this resting crying face. It's really funny. And it's really fitting of the situation, right? Did you Hackintosh it or ever tried to? So I used to Hackintosh my computers. I used to Hackintosh my desktop. I actually built a desktop specifically for the purpose of Hackintoshing. And I used to also Hackintosh my Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro, but I have not Hackintoshed in the past 4 years because I've just moved away from Mac OS. I don't need it. Like Windows has everything that I need, whereas Mac OS has a lot of things that I want, but not everything I need. So I just stick with Windows nowadays. And plus, you know, with Hackintosh, you lose access to the DGPU. You lose access to internal Wi-Fi. It just makes the laptop experience just worse in many ways. So even though you're getting, you know, perhaps an operating system that you like better, it's the actual experience isn't all that good in my opinion. So I didn't really look into it. But it is really cool that those of you who figured it out. Okay, so the motherboard's back in. From your experience, the 2018 version works well with MATLAB and PSPICE. I don't know what the latter is. I do know MATLAB. I use MATLAB in class. It's pretty good for MATLAB. I mean, it depends on how heavy the computations are, right? I just took an introductory class in MATLAB programming. How many hours of battery are you getting? Okay, so this is a topic that I would like to talk about. So everybody's battery usage varies so much that there's pretty much like 0 point in really asking a random other person how many hours their battery lasts. With that said, though, what's more indicative of actual battery life in a laptop is two things. One is the size of the battery, and two is the power draw of the system. Because the battery life is literally the size of the battery divided by the power draw of the system, the average power draw of the system during your use. Okay? So the first metric, the battery size, 57 watt hours. The second metric, power draw, varies anywhere between 6 to 60 watts, depending on load. So you see where I'm going with this. Like this is very, very varied. It's everybody has it differently, you know. And it depends completely on what you're doing. So sure, you know, I can give you some estimates. You know, if I'm just watching videos, I could probably do like 6 hours. Idle 6 watts. I mean, that's just a ballpark estimate. I forgot what it is actually. Like one thing you can check for yourself is use HW Info. There's a charge rate monitoring thing towards the bottom of the list, and when you're draining the battery, you'll see a negative charge rate, and that's how fast your battery is draining. By the way, I gotta go back in here and because I think I routed the antenna wires wrong. Yeah, I think it's like down to 6 watts. It's not the most power efficient idling. The most power efficient would probably go to, you know, the new MacBooks, the 12-inch MacBook, of course. Not only because they have a really low TDP CPU, but more because Apple's VRM design is more efficient than Huawei's. Yep, I think that's got it. But overall, you know, the MateBook X Pro is a very efficient laptop still. Yes, if you do video editing, the 2019 X Pro would be a lot better. Because just now, earlier on the stream, we saw that without any kind of modifications, just with an undervolt, you get pretty good sustained performance, much better sustained performance out of the 2019. So yeah, when people ask like, oh, how long does the battery last? Like, I don't really know how to answer. And anyone who claims they do, you know, that is claiming that they can answer for you personally, is bullshitting. And I don't think those battery tests are useful either. You know, whether it's the number given by the manufacturer or given by a reviewer doing tests. Now, if that reviewer has reviewed enough laptops, you can kind of compare them against the same metric. Sure, that works. But really, I would say, like, what's really good is if you go on notebookcheck.net. Notebookcheck, by the way, is one of my favorite laptop review sites. They have in the, what was it? Was it the emissions section or the performance section or the power section? I forgot. But they publish measurements of exactly how many watts the computer draws while idling and how many watts the computer draws while it's under load. And basically you want the idle wattage to be as low as possible. But I generally look for a high load wattage because that indicates that the computer can sustain a high level of boost for a long time. So for example, the MateBook X Pro, because it has a DGPU, it consumes more power under load, which is actually a good thing because there's actually just more electricity going into making things work for you, you know, moving electrons around, processing, you know, that's like the heat output is directly proportional to the amount of computing that you're doing here, with other factors held constant, of course. So the MateBook X Pro, I think, according to Notebook Check, sustains about, like without any modifications, the last year's model sustains about, 60 watts? While some other laptops might just sustain about 30 watts on the low end. So, but then if you look at what's more telling is, for battery life at least, is the idle power draw. You want that to be as low as possible. And for the MateBook X Pro, it's quite low. So it's rather power efficient, actually. And I think a lot of that comes down to the screen. It is a very good screen. If you don't use your computer for more like heavier things, like as I said, like the three different situations that you might be in, right? Either you don't have much use, your usage is light, or you're okay with a slightly louder and slightly warmer and slightly slower laptop, or you don't mind modding it. Like you're talking about ARF MF here. You're talking about the first situation. I would say if you don't like, okay, so how do I put this? I'm the kind of person who wants to scroll through my emails at 60 FPS on a 4K monitor. And doing that, unfortunately, in 2019 requires about 20 watts of power to not drop frames. But you're probably not, that tough of a user. So I would say, yeah, I don't think you're going to have that many problems with the hardware doing those things. Oh, Orso says equalizer APO and dynamic Q can work together with Dolby Atmos. That's cool. That's cool. I'm more of a purist, so I kind of just deliberately got rid of Dolby Atmos by turning it off and then uninstalling the app. Because I personally don't need anything from it. Especially when I don't know the algorithms that are being used there. Like it doesn't, I don't know, it's just the typical audiophile mindset, It's like, what are you doing to my sound? If you're not telling me, then I don't really want to hear it. And plus, it doesn't actually sound that good to me. But if you like it, then great. Thanks for letting me know about that. If you guys don't know about Dynamic Q, I highly recommend Dynamic Q. It's a speaker enhancing algorithm that I made. It's the same type of algorithm that Apple uses on their MacBook Pro speakers, which are the best laptop speakers in the world. And I don't say that lightly. They are really good. And so, look, I actually, Apple sent a bunch of representatives, recruiters, to UC Berkeley, to my college the other day. And I got to talk to one of the leaders of the MacBook Pro team. And I described to them my algorithm for Dynamic Q. And I just said, okay, so here's what I'm doing. The algorithm is doing this and that. Do you guys implement something similar? And he straight up just said, yes. That's all he said. Spot on. So yeah, if you haven't already, check out Dynamic Q. It should be on my website. You can probably find it in the menu up top. You can find it if you're using a MateBook X Pro. You can find it under MateBook X Pro speaker improvements. It was developed. It was kind of co-developed with the speaker improvement project, but it is good for any laptop or mobile device with, or even like just any small speakers in general, whose volume and bass is limited. It's very good. Really brings the speakers to a whole nother level. How can I make the 2018 work cooler? So there's many ways to do that. Yeah, you can undervolt. You can redo the insides, and you can kind of pick and choose from the mods that I have there. Some of them are more expensive. Some of them are more like they give you more bang for your buck. So you can kind of pick and choose. I think in my FAQ on that page, I have answered like if I just want to make my computer cooler, which mods should I do? Would 2018 be worth keeping for video editing? For video editing in particular, for video editing without mods, it's going to be rather unpleasant, I would say. At least in my standards. It depends on, what what type of performance you're used to. But video editing, let's say in Premiere, is kind of a pain. The export would take a long time because of all the throttling. Where does this screw go? Right here. Okay. Okay, that's the SSD screw. Where's the other screw? This one? Nope. Uh-oh, I might be forgetting my screws, guys. Actually, no, I still got it. Still got it. Hold on, it's getting kind of warm in here. We warned you about this. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Don't worry, I got this. I got this, dude. So, you know, for audio, for mobile audio, I don't understand why nobody else is doing this other than Apple. This referring to volume dependent frequency response control. Okay, so because you can't have very high volume and a lot of bass at the same time. You just can't. Out of a tiny speaker, that's not possible. It takes way too much power and just too much air to produce bass at a high volume. So what you do is you play with this trade-off between volume and bass. And so why don't you make that trade-off available to the user automatically, meaning when the user is at a lower volume level, give the user more bass because you can, and when the user raises the volume level, revoke the bass as needed. Like, that seems very straightforward, doesn't it? Because if you have, let's say, anything with an equalizer, let's say a Samsung Galaxy phone, right? Those come with equalizers, and you can go inside. You can choose from one of the presets, or you can define your own. What I like to do with my Samsung phone, before I got the OnePlus, of course, is I went on Notebook Check. I looked at the speaker measurement that they did, the graph, the decibel versus hertz graph, the frequency response graph, you know, and I basically took the inverse, the upside down of that graph, and I put those numbers into the equalizer that came with my phone. Which means that whatever the frequency response of the speakers used to be and is originally, which is a very imperfect frequency response, very tinny, you know, very sharp sounding, whatever that was, you're now applying the opposite of that frequency response through the equalizer. Therefore, when the sound actually comes out of the speakers, these two cancel out and give you the perfect frequency response. That's the whole point of frequency response correction. But the thing that you would realize, just as I did, when doing that kind of equalization on a phone speaker, is that your volume goes down drastically. Because you're not magically increasing the bass. You're more like decreasing everything else but the bass, so that the bass sounds more accentuated relative to all the other frequencies. So what do? Now you don't have enough volume, right? So When you want more volume, you turn the equalizer off. Okay, so the question is, why does the user still need to do this in 2019? Why can't the phone just take care of this out of the box by itself, you know? Because when you're at a lower volume, the amplifier is not being stressed at all. There's so much more headroom, and so much more headroom in the speaker as well to give you more bass, to give you a better frequency response. Not just more bass, but just overall better frequency response. Whatever frequency was missing before. Anyway, so yeah, that's what Dynamic Hue does. It fixes the thing that was always missing in mobile device speakers. Let's see. I kind of want to do the copper shim mod. Guys, should I do the copper shim mod right now? Let's do it. Because I think I have extra copper shims somewhere. Do I have... Oh crap, they fell on the floor. Let's see, 0.3 millimeter copper shims. There we go. Alright. So, copper shim mod. I'm going to disconnect the battery. I'm not going to put everything back together just yet. So, if you didn't know about the copper shim mod, you normally there's a thermal pad between the copper base plate of the heatsink and the chip, the GPU chip. The thermal pad is not the best way to bridge the gap between these two. So instead, we're going to go to thermal paste. And that's going to be done via a copper shim. So we're going to fill the gap using the majority of the gap using copper shim, and the rest of the contact will be taken care of by the thermal paste that we're going to put between the base, the copper shim, and also between the base plate and the chip itself. So that's the copper shim mod. Let's do it. This is something that we can do right off the bat. All right, so let's see. And also we're going to do a repaste. Thermal paste actually doesn't look that bad on this one, but probably Thermal Grizzly Chironaut is better. Alright, so I've got my alcohol here. Let me actually grab 99% alcohol. Never mind, it's 91%, but good enough. You're welcome, Raw Productions. Alright, so let's give this a little wipe down. And wipe down the chip. Alright. Let's pick a copper shim. That looks good. This one seems alright. Let's wipe this one down as well. Wait, I still have enough thermal paste, right? Hopefully I still do. Oh yeah, it looks hefty. Feels hefty. Yeah, the 2018 is loud when you try to really make it work hard. I mean, come on, the thing's only good for 15 watts. It is disappointing. I mean, it's like everything else was. It was look if looking back in computer history, or at least laptop history, the original MateBook X Pro will be remembered as a truly important laptop. Important because it was the one that brought us one of the first bezel-less displays, one of the first laptops to have a discrete graphics card, discrete GPU, in such a small form factor, in you know a sub 14-inch form factor. It got so many things right, but the performance, that's always been lacking. And you know that's where I come in, right? Okay, so all right. So first of all, let's put thermal paste on here. By the way, if you guys didn't know already, there's a mod guide on my website, bradshacks.com. Everything that I'm doing here is documented on there. Alright, so let's see, I've got to get my thermal glue ready as well. So I press the copper shim evenly onto the GPU. Like that. Actually, I should have used more thermal paste. I'm going to redo this step. I mean, that looks alright, you know, but it's just missing a little bit at the corners. I really want to maximize this copper shim though, so just give it a little bit more on the corners. Okay, that should be more than enough. Too much and it'll start sliding. This is kind of a slow process here. Okay. Looking good. Alright, now we're going to wipe off the excess thermal paste. Alright, now comes the thermal glue, which will actually solidify. Thermal glue is just, more thermally conductive glue. And it's also thermally resistant, so it's heat resistant. So we're gonna put some on the edges here. Oh man, this is kind of become solid over the months. Come on. I know you're still liquid inside. Dang it. Oh wow, my thermal glue has almost completely dried up. This is not good. Okay, so you know what? I think we're gonna have to go without the thermal glue this time. Actually, you know what? I have an idea. Scissors. It'll be a one-time thing. There we go. Now we're talking. There we go. Okay. All right, so now oh crap. Uh-oh. Gotta make sure that there's no thermal glue in the middle, at least, of this copper shim. All right. Just gonna do that. All right. So what do you guys think about the trade ban? Larry's rooting for China. Okay. Interesting, interesting. I've got a friend who is so wary of Chinese tech and security issues and things like that, and spying concerns and all that kind of crap, that I asked him, okay, would you, if I came to your house, would you let me would you let me and my MateBook on your Wi-Fi? He said no. I'd probably put your MateBook on a guest protected Wi-Fi or something like that. People are paranoid. China, particularly Shenzhen, is really good at consumer electronics. I mean, nobody can beat them. At least when it comes to hardware, like they've got it down. But software is, frankly, Chinese software is kind of disgusting. PC Manager is an example. See, like the MateBook X Pro even comes with its own version of Windows' Nightlight feature. I think that's kind of ridiculous. Like, why would you replace? Why would you replace built-in function of Windows with something that's not any better? That's kind of the whole culture of Windows software in China. They try to replace a lot of the functions that Windows already has. When they build apps, they use custom UIs all the time. And those UIs don't feel good. They're laggy, they don't scale well with high DPI displays. I don't know why they all use it. They probably try to differentiate their the looks of their software, probably. And then there's and like when you get to Android phones, like the reason I don't use, one of the reasons I don't use Huawei phones is that their software is just really cringy. One reason that the P30 Pro in the reviews does so well with battery is because it force stops applications in the background. But the way that they do it, it stops messaging apps from sending you notifications, which is just really dumb. Like, it's such a big oversight. PC Manager, should we remove it? I would say unless you really want the battery protection feature, the charge limiting feature, I would remove it. There's no reason for it being there. The drivers can all be attainable through Windows Update or the Huawei website. So I really don't think there's anything that PC Manager gives you that you actually need. If anything, it's just an annoyance and a potential security vulnerability. All right, see you, John. Thanks for tuning in. No, charge limiting. So it limits the battery. It'll like stop the charging after the battery gets to a certain percentage, 80% or so. I think it's 80%, but you can like configure it to different settings. It protects the lifetime of the battery. It extends the lifetime of the battery. because lithium ion batteries don't like being held at full charge for long periods of time. It takes away from their lifespan. But I prefer to have the battery fully charged and just ready to go, just in case I need to go out to do something. I want, you know, the most battery life I can get. And here it's a kind of a similar situation with phone cases. The battery protection thing is the same thing as phone protection. You put on a case to protect the phone because the phone is worth something. But in doing so, you've made the phone thicker, you've made its bezels thicker, you've made it heavier, you've made it bulkier, uglier. So functionally, practically, for all practical purposes, your phone is now a lesser phone. It is now a worse phone because you've put a case on it. So you get less phone with the case, but the upside to that is when you eventually sell the phone, you retain more resale value. So if that's something that you're looking for, yeah, go for it. If what you've essentially done is you've paid less for a worse phone, right? If you factor in the resale value, you're basically downgrading to a more budget-friendly phone by putting a case on your phone. But I say, why not just have a better phone? I mean, of course, it comes down to your personal economics. Okay, we're just waiting for this to dry off. In the meantime, I'm going to clean off the thermal paste on here and here. So I'm just going to use the paper napkin, the paper towel here. Oh, it's got this little like elevated. The CPU base plate is different this time. It's got this little elevated plateau here, and then another step. It's got 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, whereas the old one only had a single step. And that is oh, it looks like that's to account for the ring around the top of the package. Is it worth activating battery protection? I mean, that decision comes down to your own preference. And I mean, a lot of it, I think, depends on how long do you plan to keep your laptop. You know, I pretty much upgrade every year. Because this is kind of what I do. It's like my main hobby. So I kind of want to stay on the bleeding edge of things. But if you plan on keeping it longer, then it might be worth it for you. Oh yeah, and again, listen to what Larry's saying. That makes a lot of sense. If you have it docked in most of the time, if you don't need all that mobility, then you probably don't need all that charge all the time. But if you're always on the go, then you always want to have as much charge ready for you as possible at a moment's notice. By the way, how old are you guys? I have a feeling that most of the active MateBook X Pro community is quite young, college age. I'm 33 at heart. So apparently I have been crowned the MateBook Dad on Reddit. I forgot which user gave me that nickname. But I'll happily take it. Although I do find it kind of weird that I am apparently a dad figure at age 19. You know, I wouldn't mind if it was the MateBook Lad instead of the MateBook Dad. But then, out of that came another nickname, the Mate Father, which sounds pretty cool. I started messing around with electronics, like laptops and smartphones and stuff, when I was around 12, I would say. Because that's when I broke my first iPod Touch by trying to fix the broken home button by myself and failed miserably. Okay, time to put on thermal paste. So let's see. We should probably get some new thermal pads for the VRM since they put some there themselves as well. Let's see. What about the SSD? Oh, thermal pads for the SSD. I'm not going to worry too much about that because, at least right now, I am going to pad the SSD up even more. But right now, since I'm putting back this SSD, instead of the 970 Pro that I actually want in here, I'm not going to do anything about that right now. But eventually, I'm probably going to do the exact same that I did before for my old MateBook, which was basically sandwiching the SSD on both sides with thermal pads. That really allows it to perform unrestricted. So let's see, what thickness of thermal pad did I use for the GPU VRM? 1 millimeter. Okay. Alright, let's see if I can find some scrap 1 millimeter thermal pads just to put on there for the time being. Actually, you know what? I'll forego that. All I want to do right now is just put everything back together. Because the last generation of the MateBook X Pro survived just fine without thermal pads on the not on the VRM, on the VRAM. Did I say VRM? I meant VRAM. But yeah, let's see. So we've done the GPU copper shim mod today. And we've taken a look at all the internals. But what we now have to do is figure out what mods to do from here in the near future. Because I'm going to have to start ordering materials. One thing that I'm thinking is have either a copper plate, copper sheet, or a bunch of heat pipes going down in this direction over the battery, not making contact with the battery deliberately, but just basically extending the heatsink. Give it more surface area. It's always a good thing. Alright, so we've got thermal paste on all the dies. I think we are ready to, put the heatsink back on. Just checking one last time. Making sure all the screws are in their proper positions. There's one in the corner there. Whoops, that's actually this size here. Okay, so let's see. Reconnect the battery connector. So this screw shouldn't be here. You know what? I'm kind of liking this live stream format because now I don't have to worry about editing the video after the fact. And that just takes a lot of stuff off my mind. Might go for a drive after this. That's always relaxing. In the suburbs, at least. Driving in the city is just stupid. Oh shoot. Forgot a little ribbon cable here. I think it's the keyboard backlight. How many of you have done any thermal mods from my blog to your MateBook? Waiting for the availability mod. Yeah, I wish I could make that happen. I wish. All right, let's put this back on now. Damn, it feels good to be back on a MateBook. To be back on such a moddable platform like this. This is one of the most moddable laptops, actually. There's so much you can do to this. I mean, that's why there's so much that has been done to this, right? This is, I wonder if you guys have seen the MateBook X Pro user survey. A lot of fellow users have done some modification to it, whether it's the Touchpad Rattle fix or the throttle mods, the throttling, anti-throttling mods. This makes it perhaps one of the most modified Ultrabooks out there. Oh yeah, so one more reason to hate Trump, because he ruined Huawei. That's funny. You know, the tech community, whether it's the reviewers or, you know, smaller people like me, have always not messed with politics, but somehow politics gets to you anyway. So the GPU temperature is not really a problem at all. Any improvements made to the thermal contact with the GPU die is really only going to raise its temperature, because the CPU is way hotter than the GPU because it's just higher powered. In fact, at full boost, the 8565U can approach 50 watts. So if anything, it'll just warm up the GPU even more. But actually, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because what will happen to the GPU is it'll become what's known as dark silicon, which is, I mean, kind of effectively the same as dark silicon, although not exactly. Because it'll kind of act as a heatsink for the CPU, which really still works in our favor, because what you want at the end of the day is just for everything to become isothermal, meaning everything's just the same temperature. That's when you get maximum heat spread. That's the result of maximum heat spread. Oh, if you just got here, the touchpad rattle is largely fixed, but I can't say that's true for every unit. And the way that they fixed it, I can show you actually, is probably, so here's, I've included this in another video that I made where I explained how I used a hammer to fix the old model's touchpad rattle. During assembly of this laptop, a machine comes down and installs the touchpad in place, and then it presses these metal tabs and it bends them and presses them down against the chassis. That's what secures the touchpad into the chassis, and these tabs are also what limits the upward motion of the touchpad. If these weren't here, the touchpad would just fall through right now as I have this open. It would just fall through in this direction. This is what keeping them. This is what's limiting the top end of the touchpad. So what they probably have done, and it looks like it, is that they've reconfigured the automation that presses this down to press it down a little bit further than before. And that solves the touchpad rattle. I will say though that it is still a little bit on the loose side, but it is, at least on my unit, improved. And the thing about, a lot of these issues that people have, touchpad rattle, noise, things like that, it's entirely subjective. My friend who also owns a X Pro said he never noticed any kind of touchpad rattle until I tried it out and said, wait a second, your touchpad is loose as hell. And he thought it was fine. So it's different for everybody. All right. I think this is all good now. There's one more connector over here. Everything else looks good. Okay, I think we can put the bottom cover back on. I won't bother with screwing the bottom cover because I'm going to eventually, pretty soon, actually, take it back off. So, all right. Let's see if it starts. Yes, it does. Okay. The clock is wrong because there's no CMOS battery in this laptop. So the timekeeping relies on the main battery itself. So whenever you disconnect the main battery, you have to sync the clock again. All right. So I think that'll be all for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversations that we've had and the teardown that we did. Hopefully that was educational or maybe a little bit entertaining for you guys. Yeah. Stay tuned. Subscribe to my channel here on YouTube and bookmark bradshacks.com because there's going to be a lot more content coming in the future. With this laptop, I'm going to be back in the modding game again. You guys are very, very welcome. You guys keep me going. It's great to make mods for you guys. All right, that'll be it for me today. We'll do a little goodbye here. See you guys.